Children, do you know the forest? Have you seen any time the forest? Most of the students you know about the forest. I think you have seen the forest any time. Especially the village people, the village students generally, they go to the forest many times for gathering fruits or other things. But the different people have different opinions about the forest. Generally, some people are afraid of the forest because the forest have the wild animals. Due to that wild animals, they feel afraid. They are afraid of forest. And some people they feel the forest as their own home. They walk in the forest. They play in the forest. They feel like their home. And some people worship the gods and goddesses of the forest. So they feel the forest spiritually. And some people get the raw material from the forest. And they're getting raw material and they earn the money for their livelihood. So like these examples. So many people have their own definitions about the forest. So finally, we come to one conclusion that we have one easy definition here. What is a forest? What is a forest? Here, a large tract of land covered by trees is called forest. What is that? A large tract of land is covered by trees is called forest. The land is very vast and it is covered by the trees. So this is the forest. Of course, you may have some doubts about that. How large it is, how dense it is, how the forest, how the trees are covered, whether dense or not. So, like these questions you may have. So to clarify that most of the forest have some common features here. So let's learn about the common features of the forest here. The first one is the large tract of land. So every forest it should have the large tract of land. They have the vast area of land. So this any forest stretches over the many kilometers in the breadth and in the length. So this is about the large tract of land. We must have the large tract of land. Okay. Next, a tree cover and undergrowth. So the large tract of land will be covered with the trees and undergrowth. So trees must be there. And also undergrowth. What is undergrowth? Some of the small plants and shrubs and creepers nearer to the ground. These are called the undergrowth. So the plants and the trees are the main feature of the forest. The third one is the considerable biodiversity. Considerable biodiversity. It means all the living things will be covered under the definition of the forest. So the small plants, trees, animals, insects, fishes, birds. So various types of living things are covered in this biodiversity. This is the considerable biodiversity. It is also a main feature of the forest. So finally, people. Some people who live in the forest, they adopt the nature of the forest and they live in the forest conveniently, especially in India. So these are the main features of forest here. First one is the large tract of land, and the land should have the trees and undergrowth trees. And third one is it should have the biodiversity and the human beings also living in there. So these are the common factors about the forest here. And what are the uses of the forest? Not to be used. Some people are using for the worshipping. Some people they are using for the wood. Some people are using for the food. Some people using for the grazing. Some people are using for the grazing. They are grazing the animals like the goats, sheep, buffaloes, cows, etc. And some people depends upon the forest for collecting the raw material, wood material, and they are selling to the factories outside markets. Okay, about the location of the forest and the types of the forest. First, we have to know the location of the forest. What is the location of forest? Where do the forest grow? Generally, for the growing of the forest, we require soil, sunshine, and rain. Soil, sunshine, and rain. These are the important things. With the help of these three things, for the many thousands of years, forest grew over the world with the help of the soil, sunshine, and rain. So these are the important factors for growing of the forest. And even though some of the areas, some of the regions, they are not suitable for the forest. For growing the forest, some of the regions are not suitable. For example, the Arctic region. What is that? Arctic region. And the Himalayan region. In the Himalayan region, which region is covered fully with the snow? And some of the rocky and sandy regions. In the deserts. And some of the sandy beaches. So these are the places, the Arctic region and the Himalayan region, which is covered completely by the snow, and the rocky and sandy regions in the deserts, and the sandy beaches are the places. These places are not suitable for growing the forest. So this is about the location of the forest. So the location of the forest requires, firstly, the important things. They require soil, sunshine, and rain. With the help of these factors, for many thousands of years ago, forest grew over the world. And even though some regions of the world, they did not have the forest. These regions are the Arctic region, for example, Himalayan type of region, and fully snow-covered Himalayan region especially, and the rocky and sandy regions in the deserts and the sandy beaches. So these types of regions, these types of areas are not suitable for growing the forest. So excluding these regions, excluding this type of regions, forest can be located. Excluding these type of regions, forest can be located. So this is the location of the forest. Okay, by the beginning of the 20th century, people settled in the villages and towns, and they started using the forest resources for their livelihood and for the commercial purpose, for the industries, for the mining, for the plantations, like that. So the forests are cut down. Now we can see the forest in the locations, in the small locations. Which type of locations we can see the forest now? The hilly regions, swampy regions, and very cold regions. And some of the cold regions which have some type of forest. The type of regions only have the forest. Finally, we have the very small tract of land is covered by the forest nowadays. So this is about the location of the forest. So then we go to the types of forest. types of forest. Here we have the many types of forest. According to the various conditions, we can classify the forest. But here we have to understand some important types of the forest only here. So today we are going to discuss about that different types of forest here. So the first one is the, what is that? Equatorial regions forest. This is the evergreen forest. What is that? Evergreen forest one. Second one, deciduous forest. Deciduous forest. The third one, thorny forest. Thorny forest. The fourth one, littoral. Littoral means sea coast. Or these are also called as the tidal forest. Mangrove forest. Mangrove forest. So, evergreen forest. Generally, we have to classify the forest depending upon the various factors. The first factor, for example, we take one forest. Depending upon the density of the forest, whether the forest is dense or sparse, or degradable forest, or scrub forest. So depending upon the density also we can classify the forest. So by this process by this classification we can understand so which forests are dense forest, which forests are degraded forest, we can classify easily. And there is another way of classification. Depending upon the various types of different types of trees, depending upon the different types of trees which are grown in different climate regions, we can classify the forest in this way. So we are classifying the forest, we are classifying these type of forest depending upon the types of vegetation, depending upon the types of trees, depending upon the types of trees. So generally we take one example. For example, we take the coniferous trees. Coniferous. What is that? Coniferous trees. Coniferous trees, we can see the coniferous trees in the Himalayan region. So in the cold condition, they will grow in the cold regions. Not much cold, somewhat warm temperatures are there. So these type of vegetations we can see in Himalayas. And here the heavy, and we can other type of climate also for some trees. For example, you take the teak trees. You can see the teak trees. Teak trees are grown in the region which have the moderate rainfall and warm conditions. Moderate rainfall and warm conditions. But here, heavy rainfall and cold conditions somewhat. So the different two trees, coniferous trees and the teak trees are grown depending upon the different climatic conditions. So what are the climatic conditions? Climatic conditions comprises of temperature, rainfall, etc. So finally we come to one conclusion that the different climatic conditions will help to grow the forest, and to grow the different types of forest, the different climatic conditions are important here. So according to the different types of vegetations, different types of trees, we are dividing the forest into 4 categories here. These are some important categories. We are going to discuss about that not fully. Let's learn about the evergreen forest. Evergreen forest. Generally, they remain green throughout the year. So, they are called as the evergreen forest. You can see this type of evergreen forest in the equatorial region and in Kerala, in India, in Kerala and Andamans. You can see this type of forest. So generally, the evergreen forest grow. Evergreen forest grow in which regions? The regions which have the heavy rain, heavy rainfall and hot weather or warm conditions. So the regions which have the heavy rainfall and warm conditions, this region is suitable. In this region, evergreen forest will be grown. So the best example for the evergreen forest is the equatorial region. Equatorial region. You know the equatorial region. The region lies near to the equator. Near to the equator. The sunrays are falling directly here. So this region is very hot and also it receives heavy rainfall. Due to that heavy rainfall and warm conditions, this region has the evergreen forest. In this evergreen forest, in equatorial region, the trees shed their leaves and after some time the shoots will come out of the tree and again the leaves will come. So sometimes some trees are shedding their leaves and the another trees in greenery position, and another time the next trees are shedding their leaves, the previous trees are in green conditions. So finally throughout the year the forest remain green. So these are called the evergreen forest. We have in equatorial region and in India, in Kerala, like Kerala and Andamans also we have. And the another important thing is that the another type of evergreen forests are located in Himalayan region also. In Himalayan regions, we have the another type of evergreen forests are there. Here, the coniferous. Coniferous. The coniferous trees are there in Himalayas. These are the evergreen forests. Comes under evergreen forest. The best example of coniferous trees is pine tree. Pine. As the trees cannot bear the flowers, in place of flowers, they bear the cones. As they have cones, they are called as the coniferous trees. The best example for coniferous trees is pine tree. So this is about the coniferous trees we can see in the Himalayan region, and this type of pine trees will have the thin leaves and needle-like leaves. The leaves of this tree are very thin and needle-like. So as they have thin and needle-like, they cannot hold the snowfall. The snowfall will be down. The snowfall will be dropped down on the ground easily as they have in the shape of needle. Then we go to the second type of forest, deciduous forest. The deciduous forest will grow in the region which have the less rainfall for some months, and the remaining months throughout the year it will have the hot conditions. For some months very less rainfall. The remaining months throughout the year is very hot in this region. This region will have the deciduous forest. And generally the deciduous forest trees, in the deciduous forest the trees shed their leaves To conserve the water for their livelihood, they will shed their leaves. By shedding their leaves, they are conserving, they are preserving the water. So again, these deciduous forests are two types. They are grown in the more rain regions and less rain regions. And it is not equal to the evergreen forest. Evergreen forest are grown in heavy rainfall regions, but there is no heavy rainfall here. More rains and less rains only. Okay, generally in the more rain, the region which receives more rainfall, this will have the Vegi, Egisa, Maddi, Bandaru, Jittegi, Take. So, Vegi, Egise, Maddi, Bandaru, Jittegi, Take. These types of trees are grown in more rain receiving regions of deciduous forests. The most of the Telangana region is covered under the deciduous forest, and in that deciduous forest, these more rain receiving areas are covered in the Komaram in the districts of Komaram, Hyderabad and Manchiryal, Nagar Karnool and Jayashankar and Bhadradri. So in these districts we have the deciduous forest of more rainfall region. These deciduous forests which are located in these districts are belong to the deciduous forest in more rain region. Then the deciduous forest in less rain region. Generally we know the less rain regions. What are the less rain regions in Telangana? Generally the Adilabad, Khammam, Karimnagar, Warangal, Nizamabad. These are the less rain regions are there. In these districts we have the less rain deciduous forests are there. These are also called the dry deciduous forest. Here the wet deciduous forest. So the dry deciduous forests are less rainfall regions deciduous forests. We can see some of the trees again. Maddi, Take, Velaga, Egisa, Ippi, Tuniki, Chiguru, Billu, Neem, Dirisena, Burga. So these are the main types of trees are grown in less rainfall. Of course, some of the trees are same in the more rainfall region and the less rainfall region. Somewhat. Even though the another type of trees are also grown in these two regions. So deciduous forests are two types. Some of the deciduous forests they are grown in the more rainfall regions. Some of the deciduous forests are grown in less rain regions. The more rain regions, we can see the trees Vegi, Egise, Maddi, Bandaru, Jittegi, Take, and in the less, and these are located in the Komaram, Adilabad, Manchiryal, Nagar Karnool, Jayashankar, Bhadradri. And in the less rain region, we can see the Maddi, Take, Velaga, Egise, Ippi, Tuniki, Chiguru, Billu, Neem, these types of trees. And these are located in Adilabad, Khammam, Karimnagar, Warangal and Nizamabad. So this is about the deciduous forests. Then we go to the Thorny Forest. In the Thorny Forest, generally Thorny forests are grown in the regions which have very little rainfall. Almost the regions are dry. Just like in our Telangana, Nalgonda, Mahbub Nagar districts, these districts will receive very low, very little rainfall and they are very dry. So in these regions, we can see the thorny forest. So in the thorny forest, generally the trees which have the thorns, By having the thorns, they preserve the water in them. To store the water, to save the water, they have the thorns. These trees are called thorny trees. And what are the examples of thorny trees? Generally, the tumma, balusu, regu, neem, moduga. So, tumma, balusu, regu, neem, moduga. These types of the thorny trees are covered in this thorny forest. You'll have the small leaves and thorns to save the water. So, which are located in the Nalgonda and Mahabubnagar. Nalgonda and Mahabubnagar. So, fourth one is the littoral or sea coast and swamp forest. The littoral sea and swamp forest, generally they are grown in the sea coast. They are in the sea coast and sandy beaches in the sandy beaches and in the sea coast and in the marshy lands. So you can find these littoral or swamp forest in the regions of sea coast and sandy beaches and the marshy lands. We can find these type of forest. Generally they adapt to the salt water. Generally these trees are grown near the sea coast. As they have grown in the sea coast, they were adapted to the salt water of the sea. In the salt water conditions also they will be grown, and these are also called as the mangrove forest also. Mangrove forest. Mangrove forest also called. And also we can see the important trees here. There are some examples of this littoral or swamp forest are here. These are the punna trees and mada trees. Punna, uppu punna, bondu punna, and in mada and tella mada and gundu mada and kadili, bella. So these are the examples of trees are grown in littoral or swamp forest. What is that? Punna trees and mada trees. So punna, uppu punna, bundu punna, and mada trees, tella mada, gundu mada, and kadili and bella trees. These trees are grown in littoral seasons and swamp forest. Generally, the littoral or sea coast. Swamp forests are grown in the sea coast or sandy beaches or in the marshy lands. They will be grown. So this is about, we have completed the 4 types of forest here. Only these are the important types of forest. We have the many types of forests are there, but we have discussed some important types of forest here.